great for rising. Black freedom, white wealth. Black freedom, white wealth. I was just wondering, are blacks financially stable enough to have freedom? Are we as black people financially stable enough to have black freedom? I hear more and more about black history, black past, black presence, black future. But no matter which era, past, present, or future we're in, black freedom equates to white wealth. I remember in 1997, there was the Million Women's March. In 1997, October 25th, I went to the Million Women's March in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. There were probably over 1 million blacks there, black women there, from all states in the continental USA. There were women there from other countries in the name of freedom, national and international. The bus we rode was from a black company, but that was pretty much all that was black owned about that trip. The gas, the food, and the lodging was from non-blacks. With many other black women there, national and international, I'm sure most of them came on transportation that was non-black owned. They came via non-black transportation. I'm sure most of them stayed at non-black lodges like we did, and I'm equally as sure that most of them ate at non-black businesses. Not to mention all the money that we spent as black women. There were some men there too, that we spent on other stuff. We went into shops, we bought clothes, all these things, and most if not all of them were from non-black vendors. So I ask myself, can we as black people really afford to be free? Are we financially stable enough to be free? October 10th, 2015, I went to the Justice of Us March in Washington, D.C. This was a repeat of a Million Women March of 1997. People from all over the world was there. Now, I don't know if the bus we rode on then was actually black owned. I don't know that. It was owned by a black company or not. But I know once we got there, it cost $100 to park that one day in the parking lot. They had, the bus parking lots. It cost $100. Now, there were parking lots all over the D.C. area and in the surrounding areas. Some of those parking lots, bus parking lots, some of them held over 1,000 buses. So let's just say this. Now, you got a bus company, a parking lot, right? $100 a bus. And you got 1,000 buses in that one lot. That's $100,000 for just that one lot. And I'm sure most of those lots weren't black owned. So I asked the question, black folk, are we financially secure enough to have black freedom? Now think about this. $100,000 for one lot. And let's just say if they only had 10 lots, just 10. And we know they had way, way more than that. But if they only had 10 lots, that's $1 million just for the parking alone. Now you think about that. Think about that for a minute. But we are there celebrating our freedom, our justice of us. So this is why I ask the question, are we financially, black men, are we financially secure enough, stable enough to have black freedom? And of course, when I say black man, I mean black women too. Miss me with that, okay? Think about that again. I want you to think about that. All those hundreds, maybe even thousands, hundreds of parking lots there in D.C. and the surrounding areas. Some of them making $100,000 in one day. We didn't own those parking lots, I'm sure. You know what? I'm going to say, without fear of contradiction, we didn't own any of those parking lots. Not just some of them. We didn't own any of them. So, black man, again, I ask, are we financially stable enough to have black freedom? Can we afford to? Can we afford to be free? There have been hundreds of others. Hundreds, maybe thousands of other events and gatherings and stuff that I didn't attend. Now, I did go to the Gina 6. I remember the Gina 6, same thing. Now, we didn't stay overnight, so we didn't need lodging and stuff. But we went to the Gina 6. We went on a bus that was from a black company, I'm assuming. But we had to buy gas, we had to buy all this stuff for the Gina 6. Can we really afford to be, and now we're celebrating Juneteenth. And here we go again. We just had our Juneteenth 2025 celebration. You see, because Joe Biden, known to some as Jim Crow Joe, gave blacks permission to celebrate Juneteenth. And suddenly, black people, you could, And all of a sudden, black people, you couldn't get to even whisper the word Juneteenth. Now they're out in the streets yelling Juneteenth to the top of their voice. Why? Because a non-black, a white man, said it was okay to celebrate Juneteenth. Now that's a whole nother podcast about getting permission, but But you think about that. And the reason I keep saying think about that, because I really want us to start thinking about the impact of us and our actions and start asking ourselves what I call some hard-hitting questions. So just think about that. Small black businesses, they were selling ethnic clothes, and most of what they were selling were actually genuine African clothes from Africa. And there were faithful black people who went in year after year for Juneteenth and bought merchandise. And not just for Juneteenth, they went in throughout the year and bought merchandise and stuff because they wore ethnic stuff, or they wanted some kind of wall decoration that was ethnic. And when I say ethnic, you know what I mean. Don't play with me. But listen now, when Joe Biden said it was okay to celebrate Juneteenth, non-black vendors started selling fake African attire. And you know why? Because these non-black vendors knew, based on many blacks' patterns, that since a non-black said it was okay to celebrate Juneteenth, blacks would start celebrating Juneteenth. They also knew that these many blacks would look for non-black vendors to buy from. You know, you can master almost anything or anybody if you know the pattern. And baby, they know our pattern. Don't get me wrong now. There were many blacks who were already celebrating Juneteenth and were already and continue to support black businesses. Now, this was before they were given permission by Jim Crow Joe. So don't get me wrong now. But now with the sudden awakening, and I'm putting awakening in quotation marks, with the sudden awakening of black people to Juneteenth, you think that the black businesses who were already selling, ethnic clothes, you'd think their businesses would just boom, right? I mean, they're already selling the clothes. They're black owned. You would think they would just boom. Listen, if you thought that, you sure are naive. Let me say this. Did you know that during the pandemic, when so many businesses were closing down, wig shops were opening up in the black community, especially during the stimulus check time? Why? Because the vendors knew the pattern. Now, let's get to Juneteenth. This is where we are with the Juneteenth celebration. Now, Juneteenth is also known as Freedom Day, a holiday celebrated on June 19th to commemorate the emancipation of enslaved African Americans in the United States. Now, Juneteenth occurred about 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. So for 2.5 years, the slave owners knew that the slave was so-called freed under the Emancipation Proclamation. And that's a whole nother podcast, the Emancipation Proclamation, that crocodile. But anyway, so 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, the slaves in Galveston, Texas, were told that they were free. So that's how the Juneteenth came about. Because, it was around Juneteenth when this happened, the middle of June. Let's talk about some events that went on, money-making events that went on in the celebration of Juneteenth. I'm reading this from the website. That's from AI Overview. So, yeah. But anyway, it says Juneteenth 2025 will be marked by celebrations across the United States. And they're listing highlights and stuff. And one of the highlights is the Dallas Juneteenth Parade, a significant event in Texas, and a variety of activities at the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. Chicago will host the Chicago Juneteenth Village Fest, and Los Angeles will host the Lamart Park Juneteenth Festival. Now, this is in addition to many cities that will have local events. Let's talk about some of these major and local events. Talk about the money that was generated that didn't go to, most of it didn't come to us. So again, I'm asking the question, black man, are we financially stable enough to be free? Now, of course, we know national events, Washington, D.C., Dallas, Texas, Chicago, Illinois, Los Angeles, California, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Detroit, Michigan, Fairfax, Virginia. I can go on and on and on about the different events, the parades and the parties and the this and the that and the other. I can go on and on. But we do know that a lot of those things you had to have permits for. We didn't get permits from us. We had to have permits for them. A lot of those places and stuff, the local stores and stuff were open. People went in and bought stuff. Bought fake African event stuff and all this kind of stuff. All this stuff that was bought. And the majority of that was not bought from black businesses, because the black businesses we do have are small. We couldn't compete Because, and the reason we can't compete, because here again, are we financially stable enough to have freedom? Because if we spent the money with us that we spend with these other vendors, baby, we could be up there competing with anybody. As a matter of fact, we could put them out of business. Detroit, the Juneteenth celebration at the Museum of African American. Now, this was Charles Wright, named after Charles Wright. They had an event there. And I don't know if it was free to get in, because see, a lot of these museums, it was free to get in during that particular day. So that means some of those black museums had the most crowds that day. But those people weren't paying. But they were paying for other stuff outside of the museums and everything. Like, man, are we financially stable enough? Are we financially stable enough to be free? We talk about freedom. We talk about this, that, and the other. Sometimes we pump our fist in the air. But are we financially stable enough? Are we financially stable enough to be free? Black people had to purchase insurance for some of these events they had. This one guy was telling me he had to purchase $1 million worth of insurance just for a one-day event. So that's just that one person. So think about how many other black people actually purchased insurance, $1 million worth of insurance for that one day. And you know what? I'm almost sure, 99 and 144% sure that didn't come from us. We don't have insurance companies like that. So again, I ask you, black man, are we financially stable enough to be free? Black man, you used your financial freedom to make every other race wealthy. Why did you do it? Keep on churning till the butter comes, and be encouraged. Subscribe, comment, like, and share. Support our youth in any way you can. Keep on churning till the butter comes. Albert C. Richardson, a black man, patent the butter churn U.S. patent number 446470, February 17th, 1891. I'm Lily Bayer. I'm just trying to create a dialogue. I leave you with this. If they close my book, you remember my story. A Nat Turner Runner production. Lock and load. Lily Bayer. Be encouraged.